And so, look, I feel like we're at the dawn of a new age. And I know VR has been coming. It's been 5 years away for 10 years. But there have been some things that have happened in the last 12 months, really like almost for me in the last 6 months, that have changed my view of free roam VR and what's possible with immersive experiences. I want to thank everybody from joining, like from the Netherlands and Toronto, and people from all over the world tuning in. It's so cool to see everybody. And I do from Reme, bonjour from France. And congratulations to Spain, by the way, for beating England in the Euros yesterday, and to Argentina for beating Colombia. I was rooting for the two wrong teams yesterday. Hey, Christoph, thanks for joining. We're going to talk a little bit about your stuff today. Yeah, congratulations. And so we're going to dive into immersive experiences. I'm going to go fast. If I go too slow, stop me. We're recording this. You'll be able to watch it in the future. And thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for joining. Martin from Arizona. And so let's get into it. Let's see. So I've got an agenda. I've put it up. So the first thing we're going to talk about is some of the tech trends I think that have led to this moment where we are right now on immersive entertainment. And then we're going to dive into some of the economics. Just in the last week, or last few weeks, there have been a couple of, and it's interesting, all of this stuff has come out of the UK and Ireland. So if you follow me and you follow my inside newsletter, which I've started publishing a couple of months ago through the VR Collective, you'll know about the Immersive Audience Report, which came out of the UK. And we're going to cover some of that today. And then we're also, Vancouver, Yangos, thanks for being here. We're also going to talk about some of the economics that Andy Scanlon's company, who's the Sandbox VR franchisee in the UK and Ireland, and Ronan McMahon recently disclosed some economics from his zero latencies in Ireland. And so we're starting to see companies start to disclose their financial performance, which we haven't seen. Like, I've been trying to find, I say cut through the bullshit of virtual reality. And I've been trying to find, the truth about the economics of VR. And a lot of people talk about, oh, I'm making revenue, or I'm breaking even. But when I drill into what does breaking even mean, they're not talking about their time. They're not the value of their time. They're not necessarily talking about getting a return on their capital investment. They're just talking about covering their OpEx every month, their operating expenses. And to me, that's not why you get into a business. You get into a business to build value, to make money, to build enterprise. And sure, there's passion involved, and there's such great reward that comes from putting people into their VR experiences for the first time and helping them have fun or discover new worlds, and all those things are great. But look, businesses are about economics, and you got to be able to make money to grow the businesses, to sustain it. And so we're starting to see people start to disclose the economics of their VR businesses for the first time forever. And that tells me that things are working. And that's what I want to dive into. And so we're going to talk about the economics. We're going to go into some of the top experiences that I've seen around the free roam stuff. We're going to talk about the audience research report from the Immersive Audience Research Report. And to me, that was just so much gold in there. We're going to talk a little bit about the risks of getting into this business now, depending on which part you're in. And then I'm going to take your questions. And so, hey, George, thanks for joining, man. I want to catch up with you. I hear there's some news that you teased a little bit, and I want to know more about that. Steve's up the block. I'm down in Oceanside right now, by the way. Where's Waldo? We're on a pet sit in Oceanside, California, which is why you see palm trees and gray skies in the background. So let's start with technology trends, right? So as most of you know, there's two types of VR. There's standalone VR, which means everything's rendered in the headset. Most of the headsets, the Pico 3, Neo 3, Pico 4, HTC Vive Focus 3, Quest 2 and 3 run some version of the Qualcomm XR2, XR2 Plus chipset, which is basically a mobile phone chipset, right? And the rendering capabilities of that are somewhat limited, though developers are doing a great job of maximizing what's possible with that chip. But we're also seeing more stuff start to happen in the PC VR realm. The PC VR stuff, each headset has its own PC for now. High-end graphics card, used to be backpacks or tethered cables. Those sucked from every perspective: reliability, customer experience, operations, etc. Wi-Fi 6E has enabled a new level of reliability and deployment to stream the video wirelessly over Wi-Fi to the headset. So far, the Focus 3 has been the only headset that really natively supports Wi-Fi 6E. I don't talk much about the Quest because it still isn't quite up to best standards for location-based VR. You have to calibrate it constantly, and so I don't talk about that much. There are some new headsets coming out this year, though. We expect to see an update from HTC later this year. Pico's getting ready, I think, to announce a new headset, and I expect both of those headsets to support either Wi-Fi 6E or maybe Wi-Fi 7, which uses the same basic technology as 6E, and full color pass-through, stereo pass-through that you've seen now on the Quest and the Apple Vision Pro. Now, the Quest, lots of warping. It's getting better and better. The Apple Vision Pro has great video pass-through. We'll see what these new headsets do, but that's going to enable a whole new genre of mixed reality experiences. Companies have been trying to do, also Samsung has announced for the third time this week that they're still going to announce something to be announced in the future with Google about a headset. We'll wait and see when that happens, but thanks, Yangos. They are planning to enter the arena again with a standalone headset. We'll see if it's got PC capabilities. But the thing that I'm really excited about is this pass-through, color pass-through. A lot of companies have done location-based VR experiences using either HoloLens or Magic Leap. And both of those technologies, as amazing as they are, really suck for location-based entertainment. They're expensive, they're complicated, they're not, anybody else having streaming issues, let me know. Billy, it might help to refresh your browser. Sometimes that helps. And if anybody else is having issues with streaming, let me know. I'm not sure I can do anything about it. I am recording my stream locally, so the recording will be high quality. And so this new mixed reality world. I did one, for example. I did one in New York using Magic Leap, where there was a pianist and composer who they captured on a photogrammetry stage in mixed reality capture, and then you were able to get up and walk around him as he played a grand piano in the middle of the room with a whole bunch of other people. It was an amazing experience, but the tech wasn't great, and it was really buggy, and they had to have, I think for I want to say there were probably 50 or 60 people in the room, and they had to have 10 employees just to keep swapping out and recalibrating the headsets. And so these new VR headsets with mixed reality are going to make that stuff so much easier to operate. And I know some people don't want to be looking to the world through cameras, but that's the world that we live in right now. And so I'm really excited about these new headsets coming out, and we'll see. I expect in September, you're going to see a whole raft of new hardware coming to market. The other thing that I'm excited about is, there was a lot of talk about 5G, and 5G, which is based on millimeter wave, very high frequency cellular communications, was going to change things. It didn't. Doesn't go through glass, doesn't go through walls. There are all kinds of issues deploying that. But there are technologies now that are enabling private 5G millimeter wave networks. And I'm about to go check one out later this week here in California that looks like potentially an affordable option to do super low latency, high quality, high reliability cellular connections that would enable 30, 40, 50 headsets at a time potentially in really big spaces. And so there's some development happening in that space that I think is really exciting that we're keeping an eye on. And again, what these technologies are going to do are they're going to enable more people in a single location with fewer employees, which drive the economics and profitability of the experiences up. And that's why I'm excited about this stuff. It's all about economics and business models. And so I'm super, so the big trends I'm watching now are communications, Wi-Fi, private millimeter wave networks, and this color pass-through revolution that we're going through, which we're now calling kind of mixed reality. And so anyway, we'll keep you posted. Follow me, I'll keep you posted on that. So the other thing I want to touch on here, and this is going to get to an event I'm running next month in Dallas that I want to invite you all to, is the ecosystem. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. And so this is just kind of a high level kind of overview of some of the challenges that I think are holding back location-based virtual reality. And it's the fact that nobody can do it all. It's just too big and expensive to do the full stack of ecosystem deployment as one company. In the early days, companies have tried it. Zero Latency is doing it. Sandbox is doing it. But it's slow. Like Zero Latency has been added. They're probably the leader. They're approaching 100 locations they launched in 2016, right? It's 2024, 8 years to get to 100 locations. It's hard. And so what we need is a well-defined, viable, cooperative ecosystem to coalesce, to start to divide and conquer within these core competencies that we need to build a global network of location-based virtual reality, immersive entertainment experiences for consumers. So on the left side, we need investors in financing. And there's some companies out there that are doing it. Governments are doing a great job, not America, but Australia, Canada, Europe, offering grants and low interest loans to developers to create these cultural and immersive experiences, which is why you're seeing a lot of this stuff happen, I think, in museums and cultural exhibits, is because the financing is there for that. We're also starting to see some private investors. There's a company called City Lights that I've been talking to, and they're interested in financing location-based VR storytelling experiences. So if anybody's interested in that space, reach out to me, and I'd be happy to make the connection. And then there's technology companies, which we've talked about. There's platform companies, hardware companies, software companies. And some of those are also investors, right? You see these arrows show the way that companies play different roles across the ecosystem. Usually there's not a company in one sole role. They might cross over 2 or 3 roles. And then you have these influencers, architects and designers. I just read about a company met with them in Asia called the Kingsmen, which do these, these big immersive entertainment projects, and they design it, they do the feasibility studies, they do the content creation, or they pull in developers to do the content creation. And so you've got these influencers, you've got IP holders. We're seeing Netflix now playing a role in this through Sandbox VR, and they did Army of the Dead, and Sony's doing some stuff. And we're also seeing brands. I was just reading about in the Luminarium, I believe, did a nightlight, which is a Hasbro toy experience. And so we're seeing consumer brands come in as a way of extending and connecting with their fans and their audiences. And there's content developers, which are agencies and studios. The thing that's missing in this space, that's been one of the hardest, is distribution, right? There is no clear-cut distribution model for these types of experiences. Oftentimes what we're seeing is operators and tour promoters playing the role of distributors. But this is a role that I think is the number one thing I've been asked, is how do you find distribution in this marketplace? And so that's something we're going to have to work on, and we're going to have to figure out together, I think, as a community. And then there's operators. So one of the things I'm learning about is there are tour operators that they call themselves promoters, and they're And we'll talk about some of those guys that are going around and they're taking these experiences from the agency and the developer, and they're finding locations that they're renting out, whether they're pop-ups or takeovers, and then they're installing this. They operate it for a limited period of time. They partner with a ticketing platform like Fever, and then they move it around from place to place. So, and then there's venues, and the venues can range from anything like Area 15 in Las Vegas, which is kind of like this big permanent immersive mall that they've built which hosts all kinds of experiences, to shopping malls, to sports stadiums, to what I believe there's an opportunity, movie theaters, which we might touch on, I think present probably the biggest opportunity for this ecosystem going forward. We all know the theater industry is in massive disarray. It's over, there's too much capacity, too many screens, too many auditoriums, not enough content, and the audience is getting burned out. Streaming is really affecting it. And so I think that as we get into more of these immersive storytelling experiences, partnering with theater companies is going to be a key opportunity, to blow this out. And we do have a couple of theater companies coming to my event in Dallas. So, and we're going to be talking about how we might do some tests in that market. And yes, Kagami at the Shed is the show that I was in New York, and it was quite remarkable. And then of course we have consumers, right? Which are the people that are doing it. And my goal is to bring constituents from all of these different roles together in Dallas on August 6th. And let's see if I can put this up here. I'm navigating. So the event is called, I'm calling it From Atoms to Bits, the Downloadable FEC, Downloadable Theme Park, Downloadable Entertainment Center, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to have some demos there of products that you've never seen before, in America at least. And we're going to be kind of running a bit of an ecosystem mapping workshop where we come together, we break up into roundtables, we have some discussions, and we try to pull the ecosystem together to be able, in a shared reality, yes, Kevin, to pull together, to build some momentum, to build cooperation, to get conversations going. So each part of the ecosystem understands what the other parts need, because there's not enough conversation going on between the constituents in this business. And there's a lot of assumptions being made about what do we need? What does each person need? So we're going to clear that up. We're going to publish a case study coming out of the back end of this. And we're going to try to foster better communication. So I invite anybody that's really interested in this business, come to Dallas on August 6th for a one-day event. It is not going to be recorded or live streamed. It's going to be too much of a physical. We'll try to record some of the stuff, but no promises on the recording thing. We're also going to run another version of this in Europe, probably in October, for those in Europe that can't make it over to the US. But we will do a case study on the back end of it, and we will publish the results of this in a case study, and there will be more content. There will be more content coming. So that's the challenge we have, is this: we have to develop this ecosystem. And one of the things I would invite anybody watching, is if you're in this ecosystem, if you want to play a role, think about what role you play, where your core competencies are. Share this conversation with other people, and then drop me an email at your convenience at any time. And just tell me a little bit about your company, send me a link to your website, and what role in the ecosystem you think you play. Because we're going to build out an ecosystem map, and we're going to continue to run workshops where we pull the ecosystem together. And the key is going to be inviting people from different parts of the ecosystem into these conferences and these workshops. And if I don't know you're there, I can't invite you. So please, please, please drop me an email. Give me some insight into who you are and what role you do play, what role you might want to play, a little bit about your core competencies, and we'll get a dialogue going. And so now I want to shift a little bit and just kind of do a little bit of highlight of some of the experiences that that I have found as I've kind of traveled around. And a lot of you people might know about some or all of these, because I'm highlighting the ones that are probably the most successful. Now, you've probably all seen Illuminary Luminarium, you've seen some version of these big projection map experiences, right? And Illuminarium was one of the first of those. They raised $110 million before the pandemic, or maybe during the pandemic. Here, I'm going to go to the one in Las Vegas, so you can kind of see. This is the Lightbright Hasbro one I was telling you about. And they have, a safari experience. They have a space experience. You've probably seen the immersive Van Gogh experience touring around the world. And so there's this big projection map experience where you go in and you have this immersive experience. Now, I've spoken to a lot of people about these. I've done them myself. And from a storytelling standpoint, they tend to go long. They tend to be a bit boring. I think after 10 or 15 minutes, and I haven't done the Lightbright one, so I'm really interested in this one. But for most of them, they fall short on the wow experience. Like they're wow initially, and then the wow kind of drops off a bit, and then you're just kind of watching a movie. And often it comes across like a documentary, and maybe not even a great documentary. And I might be being too critical, and if I am, I apologize, because I haven't seen them all. But I thought it was really interesting that that this company called Eclipso is working with content from a company in France called Immersive, right? And Immersive was doing backpack VR, 10,000 square foot for up to 100 people in a room at a time. Now, obviously, we've gotten rid of the backpacks. They've gone to to standalone VR on Focus 3 headsets. And Eclipso is a company with some private equity or family office money behind it that's been rolling these out around the world. They opened 2 in France. They expand, or 3 in France. They expanded to London. They've now expanded to Atlanta, and they took over the Illuminarium space in Atlanta and turned it from a projection map experience into a VR experience, which I thought was really interesting. And so, because they already had a space, all they had to do was take this big space, they put tracking markers on the walls, drop in 100 headsets. And somebody commented that the problem with the Focus 3 is it's expensive. If you compare it to building out a museum or any kind of physical attraction for 100 people at $1,500 a piece, you're talking about 150 grand for a deployment of technology that can put 100 people in a room at one time, charging them 30, 40, 50, 60 or more. We'll get into the prices when we get into the immersive audience report at a time. And so the economic value that you can create based on relative to the capital expenditure that you put on for these experiences is unprecedented. There's nothing like it in the industry. And so while compared to a Quest, it might be expensive, when you think about it as a commercial piece of equipment that generates revenue for a business, it's actually really inexpensive. And so, the economics of this business have really flipped. And so we're seeing Eclipso now expand. They're rolling out quickly, which suggests they've got a lot of money and don't have to show returns, or they think the economics of this is working, and they're putting their foot on the gas pedal. Now, we did see the Void expand rapidly, thinking that at some point their economic model was going to flip based on scale. But with location-based entertainment or any brick and mortar business, you can't scale with volume. You have to scale with single unit economics. And we'll get into that in a second. But I think these guys probably know what they're doing. I hope they know what they're doing, and they're expanding rapidly. So there's one in New York. It's about to open. If anybody's in New York or going through New York, they're looking for people to come in and test early this week and next week. So if you want an invite to that, drop me an email, and I'll hook you up with the general manager of the site, and we'll get you in to try the new Eclipso experience that's opening up in Manhattan in a couple of weeks. The other one is that maybe you've seen is from Felix and Paul Studios, who do amazing work. They're out of Montreal, and they have this, it's called Space Explores the Infinite. It was filmed on the International Space Station. It's been touring the world now for a couple of years. Almost 500,000 people have done it. It just opened in West Palm Beach at a convention center. It's open in Houston. It's open in China. It's coming to Charlotte. It continues to roll around the world, which again suggests that it's easy to install, it's affordable to deploy, it's affordable to operate, and I think it's making money for people. Now, I haven't seen the economics of it yet. I kind of can pencil it out, but the thing we don't know is what's their sell-through capacity. You can go online and try to guess how many tickets they're selling based on the ticketing platform, but companies really obscure that, so it's really hard to tell. And the other one that I've been doing some work with, I know Christoph's on the screen here, is a company that I discovered recently called Universe. They're in Barcelona, and they've created an operating model that I'm really, really excited about. And they've done right now in Paris, one of their promoter operating partners has deployed their Hotel Dracula kind of walk-through horror experience. And it's running right now. And in Paris, if you're in Paris, you can go and do it. You can pick up tickets on Fever. And it's about a 25 or 30-minute experience. Each arena is about 1,000 square feet or 100 square meters. And the thing that I love about what they've done is the operating model, the thing that got me really excited. I'm going to try to share this with you. Bear with me a second. I need to do a new screen share. Here it is. So all right. So this is the thing that excited me about what they've done. They've figured out a way. First of all, they have a platform that's low code. It's easy to operate, standalone headsets. You can run it off of one PC or a tablet, super simple. But what the challenge with location-based virtual reality has been throughput, right? And even the Immersive and the Felix and Paul experiences, where you have 10,000 square feet and you can put 100 people through. It's one person per 100 square foot. It's the same as a VR arcade, right? One person in a 10 by 10 room scale VR. And the revenue per square foot that you can generate from those experiences is limited. And so one of the game changers that Universe has introduced is this new way of putting more people in the same space, but fooling them to think they're in a bigger space and letting them stay in there longer and continually changing the scene from scene to scene to scene. It's a groundbreaking way of building these experiences, and it flips the economics in favor of the operator in a way that I hadn't seen before. And so we're going to be showcasing some of their content in Dallas. Right now, you have to go to Europe to see it, but if in the US and you want to see it, you can come to Dallas. We'll have it at the EVA location in Flower Mound, Texas. And I want to show you while I was there, and by the way, they are full disclosure, I'm working with these guys on helping them with their go-to-market strategy. So they are a client. I like to be transparent about who I'm working with. So we do have an economic relationship. But I only work with companies that I believe in, and I really believe in what these guys have done. And I'm going to show you a trailer of an experience that I did that was in development that got me over the edge. Because to be honest with you, I did some of the museum stuff, and I was like, wow, I could see the possibility of this in the museum space. And they've done like a Dolly experience, and they've done a King Tut experience, and I know they're working on some other ones that are really for the museum and cultural experience. But then I did this.
Family. I see you've discovered my secret. Welcome to the City of Stories. Finding me among the stories we've always read won't be easy. But I trust you. Are you ready for a magical adventure? Good luck, family.
And so I did that experience. And one of the things that there were a couple of things about it that I loved. One was that there was so much going on. There was so much content in the environments that I couldn't actually take it all in, which means I really needed to do it again, right? And so repeat experiences are challenging our industry. And it's one of the kind of the holy grails that everybody's chasing after. And the second thing that caught me was the emotion part. It was really an emotional story that you were able to connect with, and it kind of felt like I was in a Pixar movie, right? And so what happened was I was like, and that kind of helped me put it together, because movie theaters are struggling, studios are struggling, and they're interested in immersive. Audiences are interested in immersive. We're going to get to that in a second. And theater owners are dying for content, and they're actually interested in virtual reality. And so the reason I talk about the ecosystem is because I talk to all the different constituents in the ecosystem, but none of them know how to move forward. They don't know how to connect the dots between the providers that are all doing bits and pieces of this, but haven't pulled it together into a solution with a go-to-market strategy that somebody can just say, give me this and deploy it here. And I think that's the challenge that this space has that I'm trying to help solve. And so I'm really excited about these new operating models. Now, obviously, once somebody figures this out, this is a business of copying. And once somebody figures out the business model, we'll see other companies try to replicate it. That can be good or bad. It can lead to a race to zero, and I'm not encouraging that. But I do think that we're in day one, and there's an opportunity for lots of different content providers in this space if we can build a clear go-to-market to grow locations. It's a bit of a network business. It's like Uber, right? If you don't have drivers, riders won't come in. And if you don't have riders, drivers can't make money. And so you have to grow both sides of this. You have to grow both sides of it together. And so I think this economics piece and this new operating model is really key to us moving together. I'm going to come back to your questions here in a minute, especially if they're not like on point about what I'm talking about at the time. And I'm glad everybody's communicating with each other. It's great to see the community come together. And so I want to talk. So the next thing I want to do is I want to share with you some of the economics that we've seen around, and again, I'm going to have to share screen again. So bear with me as I, as I jump around, jump around, jump up, get down. All right. So I'm going to start with zero latency in Ireland. And so this business is owned by a friend of mine, Ronan Cunningham, and his investor, Mickey Rourke. What a great name. Might be Mickey O'Rourke. And they opened the first zero latency in Ireland. It was one of the first ones in Europe pre-pandemic, when opening a zero latency was like $1 million. And it took them a while. And this article was in some Irish business journal just last week. And Ronan has been kind of opening the kimono a little bit, so to speak, about the economics of their business. And I just want to highlight a couple of these. And by the way, if you in the most recent Inside VR newsletter, there's a link to this story in the one big thing that I wrote. And if you need a link to it, please be happy to. Yeah, Sergio, I'd love to talk again. We need to get together. I'm going to be heading to Panama and Costa Rica in August and September. Maybe we can. Maybe there's something we can do down there in Latin America. But I want to just highlight some of this. So their first location was 950,000 euros to build. Now, the zero latency system at that time, it was a Gen 1 system. It was about $700,000 to buy it, or 600,000, whatever it was. It was expensive, right? Custom backpacks, machine vision tracking, and everything. And now they're on Gen 3 system. And the zero latency, that same system right now, I want to say is 200 grand. Pulling a number out of my butt, right? Don't hold me to that. But it's basically using the Focus 3, inside-out tracking, PC VR, Wi-Fi 6E streaming. And so you're talking about a couple of $100,000 today for the same system. It's actually better for the consumer, better for the operator, that you could have bought, I don't know, 5-6 years ago that was almost $1 million. And he talks about the 22 EBITDA for 2022 was $266,000, which on $1 million investment, frankly, doesn't work, right? Because you're talking about a 4-year ROI in a market where you're getting technological obsolescence in 3 years. So you never get your return on investment. But when your investment now is $250,000 and you're making $250,000 a year, the economics on this stuff are amazing. Kylie just posted a link to this article, by the way, in the chat. I highly recommend you check it out. All right. And so, and it took them a little while to figure out their customer acquisition cost. They worked with agencies. The agencies didn't work. They brought their marketing in-house. They did 1.4 million in revenue last year. And they've just opened a second location. And so 1.4 million in revenue, $250,000 tech investment, plus some build out. It's a big empty space. How much can it cost? Some front of house, some marketing. The economics on this business starting to look really powerful. Now there's another one I want to show you, right? And it's from Sandbox. Now Sandbox VR is an interesting company. It is, sorry, I'm going to take a second to find this. Here it is. So Sandbox VR is, I'm going to close that one. There it is. So Sandbox VR is a franchise. They tend to be a bit insular. I've tried to get information out of them. They're not very cooperative. They kind of keep to themselves. They've got their head down. They're executing their business plan, and they seem to be executing it well. Andy Scanlon has the exclusive rights to the franchise for the UK and Ireland, and he's just done a crowdfunding campaign and has put his investor deck out there for anybody who wants to fill out the form can get it. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You can register if you want to get it or send me an email and I'll point you to the site where you can get this. He is still raising capital. If you're interested in investing, this thing's still going on for another week or so. He's raised about £500,000. And the total round that he's looking at raise is about $1.5 million, both through crowdfunding and non-crowdfunding methods. And that's going to open their third location. But I thought some of the high level economics were interesting, right? They've got two locations, right? And there's one in London. The London is their flagship. It's in the West End in the theater district. It's in an old post office. It's an amazing facility. And it generated 2.6 million in revenue last year. Their second location, which they opened in Birmingham, is estimated on track to do 1.9 million this year. And they run a 35%. They run a 35% EBITDA. I'm going to go back to that slide. That might be in another place in the deck, but they run about a 35% EBITDA. Their customer acquisition cost is less than £3 per customer, and they're generating £37 in average spend. And so their marketing expense is really low. Now, some of this, I don't know this for a fact, but I attribute this to the amazing, yeah, right? It's amazing, right? It's shit starting to work. I don't know what their OPEX is, their full OPEX is, but they're saying 35% EBITDA, right? So take it 65% operating expenses, 35% to the bottom line, and out of that, they have to pay back their taxes and investment and stuff like that. And so if it costs them $1 million to open, and they're generating $2 million a year in revenue, and they're taking 35% to the bottom line, it's not a bad business to be in. And part of the reason I think their customer acquisition cost is so low is because Sandbox does the best job of anybody. I don't know why everybody hasn't copied it. Maybe it's just really freaking hard. But that viral video that you get at the end of a Sandbox experience is awesome. and it's shareable. It's a custom trailer. My guess is with AI, it's only going to get better, but it places you and your friends in the scene with mixed reality. It's one-click shareable to social media, and it generates a lot of free advertising. And so my suspicion is that's where you're getting a lot of this low customer acquisition cost for Sandbox VR in the UK. Now, 35% of their business is coming from corporate events. I think it's the same for Zero Latency in Ireland. And that's a good, I think Cheryl will tell you that if you're in the FEC industry and you're not getting 30 or 35% of your business in corporate events, you're not doing your job. And so, yeah, one of the things that's unique about the Sandbox London is they have a robot bartender, operates on 95% margins and generated $300,000 worth of revenue last year, according to their filings, I think. So, and so there's some really interesting data points here that could lead to a feasibility study that show that this business is actually kind of profitable. And so that's, and keep in mind that the free roam stuff, right? This is gaming, limited demographic, right? Gamers aren't the whole demographic. We're going to get into the audience report now. And throughput, Zero Latency is 8 players in 2,000 square feet for a half an hour at about 40 or 50 bucks per ticket. Sandbox is getting about the same price for a half hour. They can get, generally 4 people in a stage that I want to say is about 500 square feet. Kevin probably knows closer to what it is. I'm doing the math on my fly. Yeah, you're asking about Otherworld. I don't know about them. I think that some of these companies go out of business and they go under the cloud of the pandemic and they blame the pandemic. The Void's one of those companies. I kind of question that. I think they're using that. A lot of companies use the pandemic as an excuse. Not that it wasn't challenging for the industry. For fuck's sake, anybody that survived, kudos on you. But a lot of these economic models just were shady to begin with, so they didn't have the ability to survive the blow that the pandemic created. But any company that survived the pandemic, you got to feel pretty good about them right now, right? I mean, like, and I don't want to jinx us, but for fuck's sake, can it get any worse? And so when you look at Zero Latency, when you look at Sandbox, when you look at these companies that are actually look like they're profitable at the single unit economic model, and that's why they're expanding. When you look at potentially putting 20 or 30 people in 1,000 square feet for the same amount of time at a similar ticket price, that throughput, your rent per square foot goes down, your revenue per square foot goes up. And now all of a sudden, you're really talking about a money-making opportunity. And so that's what's got me so excited about this market right now. This revenue per square foot is something that our industry hasn't talked about enough. And I'm going to start talking about it a lot going forward. So now I want to get into this immersive report. I'm going to go over here and see if I get that to pop up. One of these days, I'll figure out a more elegant way of switching screens on StreamYard. So if you haven't read this yet, I highly recommend you do. It is some of the best research we've seen in location-based VR. It's called the Immersive Audience Report from the Immersive Experience Network. Join the Immersive Experience Network. They're a UK-based organization, but they're doing great work and they deserve our support. This is a 40-page report. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. What I am going to do is go through some highlights that I think are specifically relevant to this topic of immersive location-based VR experiences. Now, the first thing I want to highlight is the scope of the audience. It's super broad. One of the big insights that they called out is the audience for immersive experiences looks like the audience for entertainment. It's not narrow. It's not specific. It's not gamers. It's not people who like first-person shooters. It's basically the audience that goes to movie theaters. It's really broad, and that's really important. The other thing that I notice is it's predominant, it overweights to females instead of male, right? And a lot of the location-based VR experiences are male dominated. And because a lot of the immersive experiences are more story-driven and they're less first-person shooter based, then they tend to attract a broader demographic of age and gender. And that's what we need to build a healthy business. So that was the first thing that I thought was really interesting. The next thing that I think is, and I'm going to go bigger so I can see the screen that I'm looking at, is frequency. So there's this family entertainment centers, at least in America, research from IAPA shows that the average number of visits per year by the typical customer is 2.3 times a year. I know VR arcades, I know all kinds of location-based entertainment centers are struggling to increase that, but there's so much competition for people's attention, not only in location-based entertainment, but also in home entertainment, in everything, that it's hard to do. But immersive experiences are about the same, right? It's once every few months or maybe twice a year. Most people do this infrequently. And the key to this is you need content, right? Which comes back to the ecosystem. And the nice thing about virtual reality is you can change out the content with the push of a button, provided there's a content pipeline, right? You don't have to change out your theming. You don't have to change out. It's all digital. It's all bits. It's all downloadable. And so this will encourage repeat visitation. Will you get them more than 2 or 3 times a year? I don't know. But if you can't change it up, there's no chance you're going to get them back even twice. The other thing is social experiences. Now, we know we're talking a lot about social experiences. Everybody wants social experiences, but one of the big reasons is they want to go with their friends. This is what people want. This is what's important to people when they choose an immersive experience. They want to go with their friends and they want to go with their families, right? And so it's got to be social. And that means multiplayer. That means seeing your avatars. That means more avatar customization. That means more groups experiencing things together. It's absolutely critical. And that's one of the nice things about why I'm excited about mixed reality, right? Because now potentially you see the person you're with without an avatar in that space. The other thing that I want to encourage everybody to do, I've been chatting with the CEO of Ready Player Me, who has what I consider the most accessible avatar customization platform on the market. And he says that location-based VR companies can use it for free. Open API, go get it and implement it and let people create custom avatars so they can see what their friends look like almost in virtual reality. It's there for you to use. Only 28% of the people that have done immersive experience have done VR experiences, right? Massive upside. 65% have done escape rooms, right? So there's a ton of, which is why VR escape rooms, by the way, VR Cave, shout out to them, doing a great job. But this is all opportunity, right? This is just reeks of opportunity for the VR space. Yeah, somebody's asking about kids 5 to 15. I think that if I go, I think that's coming up here in a second. Actually, if I go back here to the audience, you'll find in this part right here, this bar chart starts out yellow, blue, pink. Only 20% of the audience have families with kids 10 to 18, and 20% have 10 and under. So you got to kind of figure maybe 10 are in that 5 to 15, 20% are in that 5 to 15% range. And so look, and Sammy, nobody so you don't do this for 5-year-olds. This is the thing is, if you want to be successful in business, find your customer and serve them. You can't be everything to all people. And it doesn't have to serve families with 5-year-olds. It can serve families with 8-year-olds and up, and that's a massive audience. So don't worry about 5-year-olds. So massive upside. People haven't done VR. But what they do is they do lots of different types of experiences. So the numbers across the bottom of this graph are how many different types, categories of immersive experiences has the audience done in the last 12 months. And the biggest cohort is 3, and 15, 30, 40, half, 65% have done 2 to 5 different types of immersive experiences. only 28% have done virtual reality. You see the pattern there? You see the opportunity? It's massive. And this is the biggest one. And this is something that I've been shouting out about since 2016 is we don't charge enough for virtual reality. Now, 40% of the people asked about location-based VR experiences says they want to try it and haven't. And this is the remarkable part. Of the people who have tried location-based virtual reality, 35% are willing to pay $100 or more. Now, of the people who haven't tried it, they expect to pay 20 to 40 bucks. But once they've tried it and they realize how fucking cool it is, how transformative it can be, that price point goes through the roof. Now that creates a challenge, right? How do you get people in the first time and get them coming back? And that's an operational and marketing challenge that I think as an ecosystem we have to look at. We have to create great immersive trailers that people can come and experience inexpensively or maybe even free to hook them to coming back. And one of the things I love about the immersive, the universe model, I hope you're taking notes on this one because I haven't said this one out loud, is that walkthrough experience, each different, you go through the outside, you go to the inside, you go back around the outside, you go to the inside, and they can stack virtually the levels. And each one of those can be 5 minutes, and you can stack them into a 30-minute, 45-minute, 60-minute experience. You can create a 5-minute trailer that people can go through and come out, and it's the same space that people are going through an hour-long experience in. And they can come out, they can buy their ticket, and they can go back in. So you can do try before you buy with this type of a model to get people in, to show them the power of it so they buy the ticket. And I think that's going to be a game changer for our industry. And so I just want to encourage people. I've been saying we're not charging enough for these experiences. And I think the reason for that is because people think low price is going to drive repeat play. There's no evidence that shows that's true at all. And I've been looking. And it's hard to get people in the first time. And that's an industry challenge that I think we have to come together and solve. And those are some of the risks that we have. You know, there are risks around this. It's new. It's still emerging technology. I think the reason you're seeing a lot of these be pop-ups and moving around is because the temporary locations mitigate some of the long-term rental risk around real estate. The other thing that's happening, and Andy Scanlon and the zero latency guys in the UK, the Sandbox guys, are saying that real estate investors right now, real estate owners are willing to put an unusual amount of money into build out to bring amazing immersive entertainment facilities to their real estate projects. And we saw this in the 90s when I was doing Laserstorm. There was a window in the early 90s where malls were restructuring again. Everything that's old is new again. And they were giving ridiculous tenant improvement allowances to us and our customers for building VR laser tag experiences, because that was one of the early immersive entertainment experiences out there that was really successful. And so right now, there's a sweet spot in the market because real estate is in trouble. Theaters are in trouble. There's money out there that's trying to figure out how to capitalize on this stuff. And so, but I want to talk about risk and then I'm talking about the upside. So I think the real estate opportunity, if you can get landlords to click in, you can mitigate some of your real estate risk. You can do percentage rental deals. And when you're running a 35% EBITDA after rent, you've got a good chunk in there where you can give them a percentage of revenue for your rental model to mitigate some of the traffic risk and capacity utilization risk. And I think the big one is around marketing and customer acquisition. Fever is out there helping sell tickets on this stuff. I've got questions about their business model and their efficacy. I've talked to some people who have done deployments with Fever in this immersive space, and they've basically said Fever's there just to get data, to build their database of customers, to make money off of selling tickets. And they don't care about the success of a project. They are moving into some of their own projects, though, so we'll see how that plays out. But I think the big risk around this stuff is how do you market it and how do you do customer acquisition? And that's where Sandbox seems to have a real advantage. And so I'm going to go back through questions and see what's in the chat. I know there were, let's see. Scott, Lightbright. Lightbright is interactive. Kevin makes a good point. The Lightbright thing is with this projection map, these projection is interactive. And one of the things people said in the audience report, immersive audience report, they expect interactivity. They want to have agency. They want to feel like they have some control over the experience, but they don't want role playing. They don't want that much agency, right? Which is where like the first person shooters can be limiting in audience because that might give people too much agency. So they want to feel like there's interactivity, but they don't want role playing. And that's the sweet spot of these experiences. If you've had problems getting into the New York VR experience, send me an email, bobc@bobcooney.com. I'll see if I can backdoor you in. Because, you know, you never know. And let's see. Christoph is here. Feel free to reach out to him at Universe, or if you need a connection, reach out to me. I can certainly connect you to them or anybody for that matter. And let's see, how's the PCVR in arcade business now? Yeah, look, the arcade, I think PCVR is on the decline in general in the arcades. I think people have moved more to free roam experiences, and there's a lot more content in the standalone than there is in PCVR. However, that's starting to change. The PCVR experiences are amazing. I know Synthesis has been working hard on building their library of PCVR experiences. They're up to 18 or 19 now. The VR Collective, if you haven't checked it out, the VRcollective.com, we have about, I don't know, 70 or 80 different VR LBE experiences there. We're about to add an update in the next couple of weeks that are going to add over 250 different experiences that are free roam experiences from about 40 different companies. And so there's a massive update. There's too much content. Probably too much content for ecosystem to support, and so there's going to be some consolidation. But most of that content is in the standalone space. But there is more and more and more content coming in PCVR, and so I'm happy to see that because the experiences are so much better. Yeah, I'm just flipping through comments. Let's see. Group sales. Yep. Limitless Flight. Yeah, dude. I talked to James Jen. So Limitless Flight, Jump VR. I talked to James. I've been chatting with him recently. He said when they open their next location in a big market, and I think they're going to open at American Dream Mall, and I know they're looking at some stuff in the Middle East. He actually thinks he's going to be able to get $200 or more per flight. They've been testing pricing sensitivity around that experience. And he's pretty confident that he's going to be able to pull that price up and up and up. They're not seeing any price sensitivity in their experiences. Now, for those of you that don't know, you can go to, if you Google Jump Limitless Flight, you'll find it. It's a wingsuit simulator. It's fucking amazing. It's the ultimate hyper reality experience. You put on a wingsuit, you go into a virtual airplane, the bay door opens, you feel the wing, you have to jump out and then fly. They're capturing jump points with photogrammetry, putting them in Unreal 5. It's the most transformational location-based VR experience I've done. It's also really expensive to build, right? So it's 7 figures. My guess is you're talking a couple to a few $1,000,000 to build out a location. But again, $200 plus per location, I think you're going to see. I think my guess is you'll see an economic model emerge there, but I haven't done the analysis yet. I don't understand their capacity utilization, and so I am definitely gonna hold judgment on that. But I'm optimistic, and my gut says yes. Where do I see saturation versus demand in the ecosystem? Yeah, I don't know that I'm seeing. I definitely in the free roam standalone content oversaturation, not enough locations, not enough healthy locations driving enough consumer plays, because a lot of those systems a lot of the developers get paid on a per ticket sold or per play or per minute basis, and you don't have enough minutes being used or enough consumers because you don't have enough locations with enough traffic. And so we're probably overweighted on the content side, on the gaming side. I think on the storytelling side, on the cultural and event and museum side, we're seeing a lot of new development go on. It's still really early, and it's probably pretty balanced. And one of the goals that I have is to let's try to tackle that ecosystem sooner. Because, and look, and I think the reason you're seeing, this is a really interesting point. The reason you're seeing an imbalance in the free roam VR gaming side is the barrier to entry on creating VR games, free roam VR games, is low. Kind of anybody can do it, right? The tools are there. Unity is easy to use. The platform tools are pretty accessible. The operating model hasn't worked, so operators aren't building more arcades. So you have an overweight where the access is easy, and an underweight where you need it, which is on the consumers, which is locations, because the business model doesn't work. And if anybody read my book, you've been following me, I've been saying that since 2016. We gotta solve the business model issue, which means we gotta solve the throughput issue. And then if we can do that and get more people playing in a revenue and generating revenue per square foot, we'll get more operators building these solutions. Seen a lot of people who wear glasses who pretty much become ineligible for VR. So this is really about accessibility. Look, I think eye tracking with IPD adjustment is going to help. You can wear glasses under a Focus 3 headset and a Quest. I've done it. Other people have done it. And so I don't know that it really makes it inaccessible. It might make it a little uncomfortable. VR headsets are generally uncomfortable for 25 or 30-minute experience. It's actually it's really not as big a problem as it probably seems to be. Also, I wear glasses. I don't need them in VR because I need them for distance, and the lenses are here. And so really you only need it for, if you're nearsighted, I think. I get those backwards because they're a bit counterintuitive, but I just don't know if it's as big a problem as it might be made out to be. Look, and Kevin, I encourage you, reach out to me if you're interested in Universe for FECs. That's something that I'm really interested in. My guess is you could deploy this for, I don't know, 100 grand, 150 max. And if you run something like synthesis on top of it, you can switch it in day parts, and you can run cultural and entertainment and museum and storytelling experiences and shooters and games and escape rooms. And the whole idea of the virtual downloadable theme park is taking a space and using it to have different things in different theme parks. And if you had 1,000 square feet, that's the starting point. And so I encourage you to reach out to me, and I'll reach out to you, and let's have that conversation. I think I think there's a real opportunity there. Shattered Lights, it's available for free in Steam. Basically, we talked about 3x3. So look, the Steam stuff, and this is the other challenge. A lot of the content is made for consumers, makes operating really hard. Like, I want to do Walkabout Mini Golf. For those of you that haven't done Walkabout Mini Golf, get a Quest, put it on your head, go do Walkabout Mini Golf. It's a great social VR mini golf experience. My guess is running that in an arcade would be really cumbersome because it's not designed for multiplayer, high volume throughput, right? And that's why companies like VR Cave and Spree and Hero Zone have done so well, is they've created bespoke operating models for arcades. And so one of the challenges is we need to encourage some of these content providers to look at the VR space and give us access, or partner with a developer, or do the development themselves to tweak the model so it works for an operator. And that's one of the risks that we have, is getting enough content that's in the different genres to make a downloadable theme park work. I've heard the word pants on worthy. I use that all the time. Like, you got to have a compelling reason to leave the house, and length of play is part of that. Like these early VR experiences, even 25, 30 minutes, to be honest with you, if it's part of another experience, that's fine. But I'm not going to put on pants for a 25-minute experience. Like there's a reason escape rooms are an hour and movies are 90 minutes, right? And bowling sessions take an hour and a half. Like you got to give people enough of an experience to want to make a reservation, gather up their friends, get in the car or the train or the bus, go across town. Like the logistics, the friction of getting a group of people together to do anything is high enough as it is. And making them switch experiences during an occasion, a night out, adds more friction. And so I talk a lot about the friction of virtual reality and virtual reality headsets and making it work, but there's also friction in the consumer journey that as operators and members of the ecosystem, we really have to think about. And yeah, this is a really good point. And so the experience has to be pants on worthy. You got to be, or do it without your pants on, which means you're doing it at home. And that's a whole different webinar. How would I compare the Valo Arena in customer experience? Look, I think the Valo Arena has done a great job of making an operator-friendly experience in the right type of venue. I think it does really well in a place where there's gated admission, where people can play for free, and that's where we've seen it work. Trampoline parks, gated admission, AR's Entertainment Hub in Texas. They're basically, you get a pass and you get to play as much as you want on the pass. I haven't seen it work as a pay-to-play experience yet. Not saying it won't, but I haven't seen it yet. And so I think that this concept of business models, like it's all about the business model. We see big companies bring great technology solutions to market without thinking about the business model. And the business model is what determines the success of the solution, not just it's cool or it's reliable or it's fun. It's got to economically make sense. And I think we're at the dawning of the age of economical free roam virtual reality experiences. And so, and that's what's got me excited, because I've been fucking waiting for this since 2015. I saw Zero Latency at App in 2015, and I got really excited, and it's worked in some places and has struggled in others, but we're starting to see how to make this stuff work. And so, long experience, cost per square foot, high volume throughput all seem to work against each other. Yeah, that's the issue. And so the thing I love, if you can get that people per square foot down to 30, 40 square foot per person. The other thing is these walkthrough experiences are key. If you run session-based experiences, right? So a shooting experience, it's squad-based, 8 people, they come in like laser tag, they get a briefing, they go in, the next group comes in, gets the briefing, you have downtime in between the groups coming in, it's inevitable. You can try to minimize that through having extra equipment, but it's still difficult. And then you might have a group with 6 when you can have 8. So you're at 75% capacity. The next group has 4. You're at 50% capacity. The next group has 8. You're at 100% capacity. The thing I love about these walkthrough experiences, which aren't session-based, is you can swell and go with capacity. Somebody comes in, you give them a headset, they go. They're in. They're in for a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. They come out. Other people have come in, and they're all at different parts of the experience based on when they enter, but they're all using the same space. Super efficient, super efficient. And that's the future of this. And that's why, we need more gaming models. It doesn't work, might not work for shooters. We'll have to see. There is a VR game, Varbox. You guys all know Fortnite. Fortnite allows people to drop into a game experience, so many lives, and drop out. There's a VR arcade game called Varbox, which has really struggled to find product market fit in the US, but they have a new game they've been testing called Infinity, which is kind of based on the Battle Royale model, where people drop in, you have so many lives, when you're done, you're gone. And so will we see a first-person shooter model that allows people to enter and exit whenever they want based on how long they're in there and not do session-based to increase throughput and capacity? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Bowling leagues. Yeah, man, I'll tell you, man, I spent 1.5 years trying to get VR esports and LBE off the ground, and operators really, I think they've got, I like to say, I got 99 problems and VR leagues ain't one. The amount of attention that has to go to that seems to be a very high level of friction, and it's so low on the chart of things that go on in an operation on a day-to-day basis that it's difficult. It's difficult to get groundswell there. There's a guy named Zach Johnson who's doing some work with Jim Bennington in that space. We'll see how they do, and I'm sure I'll highlight them if they find some answers. But yeah, stay tuned to this channel. Do I know of any venues that have stayed open in the same location for more than 3 years? Yeah, look, Zero Latency Melbourne's been open since 2015, 9 years going, and still insanely profitable. And so, Ronan and Zero Latency Ireland's been open since 2018. I think they opened their first location. And so, yeah, look, these things can work as long as there's a constant supply of content. And that's the key. And one of the challenges is if you go in with somebody like Sandbox or Zero Latency or Hero Zone or any one company, you're relying on them to give you a content pipeline. And I think what we're starting to see, and I've been highlighting this concept of DIY free roam, is now that you can buy the headsets and the hardware off the shelf, you can get content from pretty much anybody. And so I think the time of the dedicated launcher is probably nearing its end. And I think companies like Synthesis or Springboard or somebody like that, where you have the ultimate launcher distribution platform and management platform that everybody runs their content through, is going to be the thing that gives you the constant supply of content from a whole bunch of different developers that allow you to run different content at different day parts for different audiences over time and not be locked into one company. But if you are going to lock into one company, go with one with a track record. And there are some good ones out there, which I've already talked about. What's better, ticket as pay per person or one ticket customer so they could play anything they want until they finish the credit? Look, I think it's a really good question, and I'm not going to say one thing's better. I will tell you that most of these experiences, the ones that are successful, sell the tickets in advance on a per player basis. And so now what some of the Sandbox locations do is they charge you more for fewer players because they're taking that stage for your group exclusively. And so if you've got 2 people, you're paying more per player versus if you have 6 people because you're using the same space. That's one of the ways they optimize revenue per square foot. Zero Latency mixes people together. So, and it's different in different countries. I know in Europe, escape rooms, you get that room for yourself if you've got 2 people or 6 people. In America, if you only got 2, you're in there with strangers. And so there are cultural nuances that really, depending on where you are, that might dictate your pricing and operating model. And so I think it's too hard to answer that question without understanding more about where and what you're doing. Yeah, Zero Latency in the UK, Meatspace VR, and one of the things that he learned early on was he paid a lot of rent money for high rent, high street location, but everybody was booking in advance, which meant that all that traffic that was walking by that he was paying for, that he wasn't converting, and he had to spend money on marketing and customer acquisition. So he realized moving his locations into more off the beaten path with easy access, driving, mass transit, pay less in rent, pay more in marketing is a better model. And that's something I've been talking about for years and is kind of one of the key tenets that the Void got wrong. How important is graphic quality? It's generally not right now. I do think some of the PC VR experiences are great. It depends on what you're doing to a certain extent. If you're, showing an archaeological digs and you want to show something with fine detail using photogrammetry, you probably want to go PC VR to get that detail. But most people are just amazed to see their hands in VR, and they're in VR for the first time, and they're looking around and they're amazed. And so there is an opportunity. And one of the things I encourage companies you can do, which is the beautiful part about this business, you build your space, you go with a Focus 3 headset, right? And you can do standalone, and then you want to go PC VR, you just add PCs and networking equipment. It's the same, you don't throw anything away. So you can, there's a juncture point where you start PC VR standalone, you can take this path, but there's always a bridge to the other path at some point down the future if you want to increase your capability or invest more. It's a great question. VR esports FPS model look. So EVA seems to work in France. I know that they've struggled to make it work as a standalone business in Dallas. That's where we're holding our event, by the way, next month, our downloadable FEC event, which I encourage everybody to go to if you can. And so I don't know. I think gaming, first-person shooter gaming is a narrow market. Competitive VR is a really narrow sliver. One of the things Tim Roos said to me, who's the CEO of Zero Latency and one of the co-founders, early on, when I asked him why he didn't do player versus player and he did player versus environment co-op games, he said, if you pay $80, nobody wants to lose. And I think that's really, there's wisdom in that statement. These are high-end luxury experiences, and if you pay a lot of money, you don't want to feel like you got slaughtered. And when you get into PvP, somebody's going to be good and somebody's going to suck. Somebody's going to have a great experience, somebody's going to have a shit experience. Keep that in mind when you're thinking about PvP games. Level of emergence proportional to the price you can ask for the ticket. Look, Fidelity didn't come up. Look at that immersive audience report. Like, all the clues are in there. It's about interactivity. It's about social. IP wasn't important, believe it or not. Everybody talks about IP. IP was way down on the list of things that are important. Proximity is more important than IP. They want it close by. They don't have to drive. They're willing to drive 3 hours. They don't want to drive 3 hours. So in the audience report, that information is in there. I highly recommend you just study that thing, man. There's so much gold in there. Thoughts on PCVR HMD content as a business model? I assume you mean content creation. That's part of the ecosystem discussion, probably a whole different webinar. There's opportunity here, but I think the opportunity right now is not in gaming. It's in cultural experiences, storytelling experiences, walkthrough experiences. There's too much content on the gaming side and not enough operators and locations for you to monetize. Unless you work with somebody like Sandbox, or you can work with somebody with like Zero Latency, where you have a clear distribution path to a big installed base. And I know both of those companies are open to conversations with third-party developers. So if you want to do content, you got to start with the go-to-market strategy. By the way, I do that. That's what I do. I help companies with that, but start with a go-to-market strategy, then figure out your market, right? Because if you start with product and market and you can't get your product into the market, you're fucked. And I see companies do that all the time. With Wi-Fi 6E7, we're going to see developers move away from standalone. I don't think so. I think standalone will always have its place. And I think, Qualcomm's going to have a new chipset. They're probably waiting for the new Google headset. Android, the Samsung headset to announce the new chipset. I don't know that, by the way. That's pure speculation on my part. But the chips are getting better. Look at the new chips in the freaking Apple, the M-class chips and the A-class chips and the Apple devices. Like, they're amazing. And so the ability to look at the Apple Vision Pro chip, right? Like, so I think standalone is going to continue to be a place, have a place in the market. See a lot of people who wear glasses. I think we addressed that one. Yeah, Omni Arena, exception you're competitive. Look, I like Omni Arena, and I do think Omni Arena has worked in the right locations and worked really well. The thing is, Jan and his team do all the heavy lifting for the operator, right? They run the tournaments, they disperse the prizes, they do the player communications. The operator doesn't have to do anything but staff it and plug it in and clean it. And so what's made Omni Arena successful is Virtuix does the work. And they're the only ones doing it. And so if you want VR esports, they're kind of the only game in town right now, unless you want to do a shit ton of work yourself as an operator. And I'm not saying you can't or shouldn't. That's why I'm really interested with Jimmy Bennington, who's the former head of entertainment for Lucky Strike Entertainment. He was the best VAR box operator in the country. He installed 4 up at the Lucky Strike in Seattle, and he just kicked ass up there, and he gets it. And Zach Johnson is the founder of GG Leap, which is the largest LBE esports platform ever. He's forgotten more about LBE esports than I'll ever know. Those two guys are coordinating some new location tests. We'll see what happens. If I missed anybody's questions, I apologize. I do want one more thing about the UK and the zero latency free roam stuff. One of the things that I think John Lilly, I think, is the owner of MeetSpace VR, which is the UK licensee of zero latency. He really pushed them to let him add other experiences. It's not just zero latency, which is a 30-minute experience. He added Hero Zone, he added VR Cave. So you can go in there and you can bundle different things together, or you can come in and do a 15-minute, $10 experience before you commit to a $50 experience on the high end, because you play Hero Zone and you go, okay, that was amazing. And he says, you think that's amazing? Check out this. And then you graduate you graduate up to zero latency. And so I think this concept of people willing to pay top dollar after they've done VR and giving them a sampling experience, zero latency was really resistant to letting other experiences into the four walls of a zero latency location. And now they realize, after being pushed to it with operators, that that's actually the model that works, is this multi-attraction, downloadable family entertainment center. It's the future. I guarantee it. Any idea of Hato? Look, dude, Hato's just has not worked in America. It worked. I know some people say it works in Asia. I haven't seen it work anywhere in America. A bunch of companies have gotten it. They're still using iPhone, iPod touches and 3D printed head, like the tech stack's terrible. I think if they move it to a mixed reality headset and really work on the gamification, it could work. But again, players per square foot, low, PvP, limited audience, revenue per square foot, super low. Economically, I just don't see a business model there. I just don't see it. And prove me wrong, somebody, please. I'm always willing to be wrong. Why don't I cover Russian companies? I don't know who's saying that. Another World VR, I do. I've done so. I've been promoting Another World. I've been writing about them in my newsletter. I've done work with Another World VR, by the way. I helped them with some go-to-market strategy in the very early days. Anvio, I've been talking about Anvio. I think some of the challenges is those guys really focus on using Quest headsets, and I can't recommend any platform that pretty much depends on using a Quest headset as a location-based entertainment operator. I've been encouraging those guys to go with either Pico and or Focus 3 because the Quest is just hard to operate. Look, I just went to Another World in Koh Samui, Thailand, of all places. And I spent about an hour talking to the operator, the owner operator. And I watched them between every experience. Like, we shifted games in between, and an employee had to come, take the headsets off, put them on the floor. It took 5 minutes to recalibrate the headsets, give them back to us, and then put us back in the experience. That's just to change game within the same session. So the labor is going to be high. The customer experience is going to be shit. It's just not a commercial platform yet. Will it become one? Maybe. Meta's been talking about it for years, but I've seen no evidence yet that anyone's been able to make it work. I'm hearing rumors. Until I see it work, I'm going to be dubious. So that's part of the reason I might not favor some companies, is because they're on the wrong tech stack. And again, if you're running a lifestyle business and you want to make minimum wage running an arcade and all you got money for is Quest, fuck yeah, that's awesome for you. But that's not a business model that I would invest my time, energy, or recommend people putting their time and energy into. One sentence downloadable theme park so I can convince my manager to adopt. Profits. Like low CapEx, high level of community excitement and interest and public relations. Imagine if you did a press release in your market saying you've opened a downloadable theme park. Do you know how much press you're going to get free media out of that? You're going to get more media value than it's going to cost you to build the thing. I know that's more than one sentence, but it's profits. The economics work now. They didn't then, they do now. How can we access the audience report? I will, Kylie, I don't know if you're still watching, if anybody's got, oh, here it is. I got the link right here. I'm going to put it in the chat. Dun, dun, dun. There you go. Thank you, Jennifer. And have you been to Phantom Peak? I have not. Look, UK is ground zero for immersive experiences. I haven't been able to do most of them because I just haven't spent that much time in the UK, mostly because it's just cold and miserable there. And I quit winter and I'm on an endless summer journey. But there's so much. And again, that audience report goes into 8 or 9 or 10 different types of immersive experiences. I'm the VR guy. I'm focusing on VR. There's all kinds of other immersive experiences that do well. The thing I like about VR is I think the return on investment is the best. Low labor. You don't have talent. You don't need actors. You don't need to build sets. It's just all digital, man. It's all digital all the time. So I think it's the future. AR is social media Enclu. Look, I think Enclu needs to move to VR headsets and use mixed reality. And I think if they get off of the HoloLens and the or Magic Leap and they go to, the new Focus 3 or the Pico the Pico 5 or whatever they're going to call these new headsets that are coming out with mixed reality, I think they're going to have a winner. They got to work on, like, some of the engagement models are cool. I'm not sure about some of the gamification and the UX, but I think that was the limitation of the hardware more than their development. And I've told them that, by the way, so they know my opinion on this shit. Wow, that was a freaking marathon. I appreciate everybody that has stayed with me for this. It was super fun to do, and I really appreciate all your questions. Hopefully I'll get to see some of you in Dallas. If not, next year, the VR Arcade and Attraction Summit is being rebranded. We're expanding beyond arcades because there's so much happening in other parts of LBE with virtual reality. So we're calling it the VR Arcade and Attraction Summit, March 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th in Las Vegas. The downloadable FEC is going to be the theme, or the downloadable theme park. We're going to continue this theme because there's so much interest in it and there's so much development happening. And so if you can't make it to Dallas, come to IAAPA in Orlando. I'm sure there's going to be interesting stuff happening there in November. Maybe I'll see some of you in Amsterdam at IAAPA Asia, or IAAPA Europe and Amsterdam. Drop me a message if you want to get together as I travel around the world. We'll be in Dallas, Panama, Costa Rica, Belgium, Amsterdam, Portugal, Spain, Orlando, California, before we maybe head back to Asia in December. So if you're in any one of those places, we might go to Prague too, or you want me to come and see your shit and create some content or do product review or whatever, or go to market strategy workshop, I'm here for you. Let me know how I can help. I love this community. I love the support that you give others. I will be at IAAPA Expo Amsterdam. I think we're going to work. I'll probably run some event there with Kevin Williams. We've been talking about it. And yeah, I'd love to come back to the Middle East. I need somebody to buy me a plane ticket. Anyway, let's stay in touch. You know where to follow me. Go to the VR Collective website. Sign up for the Inside VR newsletter if you're not getting it. It's where I'm putting all of my insights and writing for location-based entertainment. Goes in that blog each week. And you know how to reach me, bobc@bobcooney.com. Super active on LinkedIn. Connect with me there. And I appreciate your time and your attention. And here's to all of us making money and being happy in the future. Love you all. Peace out.